I have an amazing guest. She truly, do you have people in your life that you're like, oh, I really enjoy being around that person. I think that they're incredible. I always learn something when I'm talking to them, but I also just, really like this individual, and you never have enough time to spend with that individual but you're like, that's somebody I'd enjoy spending more time with. And that's somebody I'd love to have lunch with. Well, my next guest falls firmly into that heading for me. I think she's amazing. And one of those people on my list of, gosh, that's somebody I'd like to get to know better. That's somebody I'd like to be better friends with. Does that make sense? She's a remarkable person, and I would rather that she tell you more about herself, because I'm trying to be respectful about what words people use to describe themselves. But she's been on the show before. Amazing, amazing woman. Jennifer St. Jude is joining us right now. So Jennifer, I'm gonna make you come in here and tell us a little bit about you. How do you describe Jennifer St. Jude?
Oh my God. Well, your introduction is going to make me cry before I even start. So thank you so much. I don't know. I mean, I think I wear a lot of hats, and I have a lot of descriptions. I think, wow, that's great technology.
And you've got good ring music.
And I got good ring music. Sorry about that. I thought I covered all the ends of everything. I think that where I felt like I really started to matter and have a definition that counted in the world was when I became a mother. And I felt like, now this was a role that it was not something to decide against or change my mind. Like it was part of my life. And I adore my children. They were both diagnosed about 5 or 6 each. And wow. So I'm not really answering your question. I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great. You're doing fine.
Okay. I wasn't sure how to segue into that. So in them getting diagnosed, my focus was to learn everything I could about what they needed, what was wrong, what was happening, and it was a really difficult road. I remember just feeling like shell shock, just like having people throw books at me and resources, and none of it was comprehensible in the beginning. And I just desperately felt like I needed to suddenly become a professional overnight on autism, and I was absolutely not prepared. And in that quest to learn more, I began finding myself identifying with the descriptions and the struggles, and it was life transforming. It really was, because I had spent my life just feeling like an alien, feeling lost, never getting what everyone else got, never figuring out what everyone else figured out, always going the back door to everything I approached. I mean, I could be 1 foot from the front door and I would go 2 miles out of the way to whip around to the back door. Like I never went the straight line, and everything felt confusing. And I opened my I feel lost. And
we lost you for just a second there, Jennifer. The internet skipped on us. No. I'm sorry, because what you're saying is so vital for all of us to hear. So you were saying that you felt like you run 2 miles out of the wrong direction, and you felt different, I think is what you were saying.
Absolutely. And I think my mantra was always, I feel lost. I always felt lost. I never felt like I knew what I was doing, knew what I was going, knew anything. And I got comfortable with that feeling. So it's not like it went away. I just grew up and I got used to feeling lost all the time. When I now had children, it wasn't acceptable anymore, because I started to feel like I can't let them grow up to live this life, because it was really painful, and it remained painful. So I started my quest on getting diagnosed and getting treatment and getting, just help to make this so that I could make it better. My goal is to stay out front of them so that when they reach the point that I was at, I could help them. And they quickly caught up, sadly. So I think with, the therapy that they got right away, They quickly caught up, and it was a race to try to stay ahead of them and them. And it still is. And in some ways they've surpassed me, which is okay, you know, but I think as a mother, I just never wanted to not be able to help them in a place where they felt stuck. So,
Amazing.
yeah, so that was pretty
So
much my journey. And yeah.
if you don't mind my asking, how old were you when you got your diagnosis?
So I will say this, I'm 52. I was 38. 38 or 39 when I became aware that I probably am. And I think it took another 2 years to find a provider. It was nearly impossible to find a provider who would do an ADOS, which is the gold standard test for autism. And that would understand women. I got lucky that I found a place that just happened to understand women and did the ADOS and was affordable, because most of the ADOSs that are available through other, you know, agencies are like thousands of dollars. So it was really difficult. But I felt like, I know a lot of people say, like, why would you bother getting a diagnosis at this point? Because without a diagnosis, there's no treatment, there's no help, there's no direction. And I needed to make things better. And I needed to make them better. So I just, I did whatever I needed to. And, but yeah, it was difficult.
Just yesterday, we had a mom who wrote in and identified herself as being 35 years old, and her 2-year-old is in the process of getting a diagnosis. And she says there's a lot of people on both sides, her husband and her side of the family, that have diagnoses, and that before she had her child, it was suggested that maybe she should look at a diagnosis, and that now that her child is getting diagnosed, that it's been brought up again, and it's something that her husband was suggesting that she get looked at. But she was saying at 30, and she said, I'm a very professional woman working at the top of my field. I have struggled with relationships and people in the past, but she said at 35, is there really a benefit for me getting diagnosed? And we had Dr. Grampiche address that a little bit yesterday, but I said, listen, I have somebody coming on the show tomorrow that I want to ask that same question, because I do think it's the question that a lot of adult women ask. They're like, I've sorted through some of my challenges. Is there a benefit in me going and getting a diagnosis? What do you think about that, Jennifer?
Well, I think absolutely. It changed my life. And I think that when you don't have a diagnosis, you don't have a focus, you don't have treatment, and you don't have awareness, because you're just sort of like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I think once you have a diagnosis, it gives you kind of a map to what now. And the other piece of that is that, before you learn more about something, you know what you know, and you think it's enough until you learn more and you realize how much you didn't know. Before I was diagnosed and before I got even a little bit of treatment, I was just suffering, but I had gotten used to it. So it became my normal, and my normal wasn't that bad. It was all that I knew. When I got diagnosed and began to get some treatment, it changed my life. It helped me so, and I thought I understood a lot about autism, but my world just burst open with not only understanding, but how to compensate for certain things, how to be easier on myself, because I now understood this wasn't any lack of trying. This was something I had to find a different way to accomplish, and not just try harder on the way that everyone else was doing. And it transformed my life. I mean, I really can't say enough. I think that getting a diagnosis is essential. However, there are also people out there who cannot get a diagnosis. So I'm not saying that you have to have a diagnosis to be legitimate. I'm just saying that if you have a choice, I think it's really a great option, and I would go with that. But there's plenty of people that are self-diagnosed, and that's as good as it gets for them. They can't find someone to diagnose them, and they are still included on this journey.
And so you mentioned that you have had therapies that have helped you. What's like, tell us one thing, if you don't mind, that has helped you as an example, and what kind of therapy was it that helped?
Um, uh, Probably, talking to someone who had an understanding. So therapy, just, talk therapy was a good start. Um, but I soon realized that I had a tremendous amount. There's a web page that talks about a lot of these struggles, and I realized I had a tremendous amount of sensory processing disorder issues, and it was crippling me probably more than anything else in my life. It was getting in the way of everything, and I wasn't able to function. And I was functioning in very dysfunctional ways, just kind of hiding for, weeks just to recover and go back there. And so getting into occupational therapy with someone who understood sensory processing and was willing to take an adult. I actually, so I'll finish my sentence. That was life transforming. But I actually looked all over the state of California for an agency that would treat an adult on the spectrum, and found only one agency that did not treat adults but was willing to help me. And that's crazy. Yeah, just
That is
not a lot of
crazy.
resources.
That is crazy. And I know you, and please, anything that I ask, and my dog is making all kinds of noises. I apologize. She just
It's okay. He's
decided to
probably
pick me
calling
out to
you.
lay at my feet and moan. Uh, just like, thank you. But please feel free, if I ask anything that you're like, ah, I'll pass on that one. Don't think twice about it, because I don't want to be grilling you.
Okay. I
But
actually want you to ask anything you want.
well,
It's
you're
an
so amazing.
opportunity to share.
I appreciate you saying that. But I think that you've had a really tough time of, I feel like you're a pioneer, Jennifer, that you've been at the forefront of so many things, and the first person to step forward and say, okay, I'm going to do this. How do you do it? And in particular, we have this new policy here in the state of California where you have some autonomy, supposedly, at being able to find your services. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I know you were just so amazing and open, and trying to figure out this process. And I think you're the first person maybe to figure it out.
Thank you. At first when you were talking about our policy in California, I thought you were going to talk about insurance, and I just my head just spun a few times, because that has been a uphill mile-high battle. That it's billion-dollar companies that you're going up against, so it's more difficult. So I think, are you talking about regional center self-determination program?
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, so I was actually someone who was told you can never get regional as an adult, it's not going to happen. And then I applied and I was denied the first time, and then I was told by lawyers you will never be able to appeal and win, because once you get denied, you can't. Well, I appealed and I won. And so it changed my life. Getting into that place changed my life, because prior to having regional services, adults with autism get kind of railroaded into mental health services for severely mentally ill people who, it's not the same treatment and it's not the same approach, and it's actually quite the opposite, and very painful. So it was extremely helpful to get into regional center and be able to access those supports and services. The problem I had when I went in is a lot of those services are kind of cookie cutter, services that are geared towards maybe, a long ago example of an individual, and this is what we offer, and it hadn't changed much. And I had some limitations. I had children. Like, I can't tell you how many people were like, we've never had someone that was on the spectrum in regional center and has children. It's like, it was like, everything was like, I felt like nobody knew what was happening here. And I felt like I didn't fit in anything traditional. I tried just about everything. The things I needed, they would say weren't available. The things they offered, I couldn't utilize, so it was really challenging. And I think too, a component of that is when you get to adulthood without diagnosis, treatment, or intervention, you pick up a lot of bad habits of hiding, masking, faking, not telling anybody anything because you've learned that that's not okay to explain that you feel lost or anything like that. So I developed a lot of these coping strategies that were made it very difficult for staff to interact with me because I looked one way but felt another, and they didn't know where to go with that, and it was just kind of failing repeatedly. When I heard about self-determination, I jumped at it only because it was different. Like at this point, it was like I've done maybe a solid 7 years of effort trying to make traditional services work, and I can't make it work. And so I'll do anything else to just see, if I can get something different. It took me a year to get into even the orientation. It was really challenging because, I just couldn't hear from anyone. They wouldn't get back to me. I would get overwhelmed and not reply, and then we'd start over. Once I did get in, it was actually fairly smooth. It was difficult finding an IF. I started out.
Tell us what an IF is, Jennifer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Independent facilitator is kind of like your program manager. It's the equivalent of maybe the program manager in an SLS program, or but it's actually, I think, more similar to your CSC. But I don't know, it feels like a little bit of both. It's a fantastic person who is your go-to person for everything. It's an amazing position that has been really helpful. And it took me a while, and I got a lot of help trying to find the right person, and finally found an amazing individual that has changed my life. And I don't even think she realizes it, but in SDP, it is now person-centered, and it is, what I need, not what they have. It's what can help me achieve my goals, not what they have available or not. And it's been amazing. She's introduced something called a one-page profile, which I know has been around for a long time. It was, I think, supposed to be part of the traditional program of regional center, and but in SDP, they lead with that. They start with a person-centered plan, and this particular IF made a one-page profile, which pretty much is one page that is a snapshot of your struggles, your strengths, what to do, what not to do, and it has really made a difference in everything. I mean, I think that just working with her she really understands this field, and she's really good at what she does.
How do you use, forgive me for interrupting, how do you use that one-page profile? Can you give us one example of how it's helped you?
Yeah, so I'm still finalizing mine, but
Okay.
we've put a lot of it together, and it's basically something that you give to a staff, a new staff, an old staff. You give to a job, a doctor. Like I said, a lot of times, people have their own prejudice of what they think people with autism look like, so they come into the room with that. And I don't always present on the outside what I feel and struggle with on the inside, so it's confusing. And I get a lot of, "Oh, you don't look autistic," or "Come on, you're like," and it's really it's I don't know where to go with that, because it's like, there's just no way out of that comment. And so this is a way to, before all that starts, educate someone on who you really are, what you struggle with, and just kind of get to the solution, and get past all that misunderstanding. I think a lot of times in the past with the agencies I had worked with, there was a tremendous amount of misunderstanding, and I didn't respond in traditional ways because I was doing all this masking and compensating and hiding, for years, because it wasn't safe to just be myself, and when I really melted down and struggled and went into traditional responses of people on the spectrum, I did not go well, because people, when they think you don't have a problem and you act like that, they think other things, and then it just kind of really blows up the connection you have with them. So it was really difficult, and I'm excited about this. I think it's something that will really change things for people,
That's
and it puts it into
amazing.
the hands of the individual.
That's amazing. I keep coming back to in my mind how difficult it must be for women. And I know that you're a great person to speak to this, that when I hear you say, because Jennifer, I mean, I've seen you in lots of different circumstances, and I only see this remarkable, incredible, capable woman. You're a beautiful writer. And we should say, you've written many occasions. There's a book that you helped to write that just was republished this last March. I think, Traven, you have the book cover if you have a second to put that up. But it's not the first, book that you've been a part of. Is there a place where people can go? Let's ask this. Where do you have a web page or anything that shows the different things that you've written? Because if they're like, "Wow, this woman is really amazing. I want to learn more." Is there one place to go or many places to go?
So I'm trying to be better about that. I think I put a URL web page. I got a URL and put a web page together. I think it's just my name, www.jenniferstjude.com. I think that no period or space. I was trying to add more stuff there. I struggle. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I have spent my life hiding this struggle and hiding how difficult it was. And it doesn't surprise me that you only see that part of me, because I don't ever let anyone see the struggle except my IF, who is probably watching and laughing, because I mean, she sees the real struggle. She's probably one of the few people that I have really trusted and let in to see the real struggle and let help me. And that's been part of the problem, is when you don't show people how you're struggling, they can't help you. And so it's been very difficult to shift gears on that and to become public about my struggle. Or, I think I struggle with a lot of the stigma and the shame that I felt through the years, about that it's very hard to be open about it. I know that it'll be powerful when I can become more open about it. It's just difficult. I get a lot of people judging my insides by my outsides, and while I'm glad that I can perform well, that I can fake it when I need to, I have that luxury. Most of the people on the spectrum don't. And, but with that luxury also comes a price of, not really being understood. And I'm not alone. I find that I'm because of internet and Facebook and all that, I actually know a lot of people around the world, women on the spectrum, and they have a lot of similar stories. Their mothers, they maybe work a job and they come home and they crawl up in a ball and hide for the rest of the day. And there's a reality that nobody is seeing, and there's a band of adults on the spectrum, many women, maybe even some men, that go unseen, untreated, unsupported, and unserviced because they are too functioning to qualify or fit into the available services, and not functioning enough to join mainstream society. And so a lot of people that I know are just home isolating, and they've been isolating since long before COVID.
Yeah. So I guess I want to know on both sides of it, and this is where I was going before, and I just didn't get there because I got distracted that we were going to show the book cover. But I want to know for those of us, and let's take it, for me, I want to know, as a person who considers you a friend and wants to be a better friend, like, what do you wish that people like me knew so that you wouldn't have to feel like you had to mask? What do you wish, like, if you, like, I know it's like hard to just say, well, Shannon, I wish you knew this, but in general, what do you wish that people like me knew? Because I want you to be able to be exactly who you are.
It's not a difficult question. It's actually a very emotional one. And I'm trying to just brace myself and not cry before I answer. So thank you for asking that. I think maybe it's hard to say it, but I think the hardest thing is to share how difficult things are with the people I care about, because I don't want them to know. Yeah, I don't know if I could do it without crying. So, like, even coming on the show today, it was so incredibly hard. I had so much help to get here and make it look like no big deal. It
Mm,
is so incredibly hard for me to make plans with people because I struggle with just knowing how that happens, that little exchange. You know, people
mhm.
say we should get together, and I say, sounds great. And then I don't know what to do next. So then they just say, you know, like, maybe this week. And I'm like, oh, I'm busy. I'll let you know. And I just shut them down because I can't navigate that piece. God forbid, even then the next step of going somewhere. So, I mean, that's more the problem. And I am sure you asked for the solution, but I mean, that's kind of where I'm stuck with stuff. I think the solution that I'm finding for some of those problems is sharing with people I trust in to get the help I need to get to do the things I want to do. And SCP is what's really allowing that for me for the first time, to really be able to get things I need so that I can live my life and I can join my friends, my society. A lot of people that know me think that probably I just kind of don't have time for them. They don't
Mm.
realize how hard it is for me to make that happen, you know. And when I do make it happen, it looks like no big deal. But um, and I think the other piece is that I think the only thing I'd want from a friend is when I tell you something's hard, and I don't think you would do this, but when I tell you something's hard, don't don't suddenly take my external appearance of, you know, that I'm capable of doing it and I'm just being negative or hard on myself or something like that. A lot of people with autism, all people, regardless of their function, struggle with executive functioning disorder, which manifests in the difficulty in carrying out steps to tasks. So even the most simple tasks become really, really, really challenging. So I can speak at a conference or a university with ease, but you ask me to fill out a form that takes steps, and I just come unglued. And so, you know, if people don't understand, that's okay, but don't tell me that I don't know what I can and cannot do. You know, and
Yeah.
like I said, not that you would, but a lot of people do. You know, they think they're encouraging you, but really just denying your reality. So,
I think that's so important. All of that was so important for us to hear. But the main thing that I want to sort of pull out of what you said is that thing about that I think it's one of the most important things so that you can do the things you want to do. For me, it all starts and stops there. That, you know, to support you to do the things that you want to do. And because I think sometimes people, you know, myself included, read when someone doesn't outwardly look like they want to do that, then that means they must. That's my criteria. Did you just hear what I said? Like I just put it through my filter. I look at it and
okay.
go, oh, it doesn't look like they want to do that,
Right.
and that's the end of the story. But it might be that they want to do it, but that it's hard for them to do it, and that's a different understanding for
Yeah.
us to be in a place of, so you know, because sometimes I don't know what people want to do and what's hard for them. I don't know what the difference is. But so
And it,
if I asked you, would that be appropriate?
if you asked me what, if it was hard?
So, for instance, if I said to you, you know, when the pandemic is better, you know, I'd love to get together for lunch with you, and you know, if you said yes, let's do that sometime, I would take that at face value. But if I asked you again and again and again, and we never made a plan, at some point, I might think to myself, I don't think she really wants to go to lunch with me, and I wouldn't necessarily be offended by that. But would it be okay for me to say to you, if I've asked you 3 times? Is Jennifer, is it that you don't want to go, or are you having trouble setting a
Yes.
time? Is that appropriate, or is
Yes.
that
Of course.
condescending?
You know, you know, it's hard to give an answer because there's the, you know, the up and coming 2030 group that might feel something like that's condescending. At this point in my life, I have missed out on so much. I have watched the world go by me, and whatever I need to do to make something better or make something happen, I'll do it. I don't care if it's condescending. I don't care if it's like, I'm not seeing it like that. I feel like if you asked me that, it would be that you truly cared and wanted to help. And I wouldn't feel offended at all. I would actually feel relieved because I think adults manifest very differently than children. When we struggle, when we get to this point unnoticed and we struggle with things, we learn to make up excuses that look acceptable in society. So we say, I'm sorry, I didn't get back to you. I'm just really busy right now. Like, we make up excuses, and I don't even think about it anymore. Like, it's not like I plan to deceive. I just automatically have learned to do these things that make me look fine, and yet, but get out of what I cannot do. And up until now, having self-determination and the support of my independent facilitator, up until now, everything I wanted to do, I knew I wouldn't be able to accomplish. So it was easier on my psyche and my ego probably to be able to just tell myself it's because I'm busy and I just don't have time, instead of admitting to myself that I can't figure out how to make an appointment because I see every date under the sun when you ask me what time are you free, and I just see like the whole calendar open up with every possibility, and I get stuck there. So having you say that would be amazing, because then I could be authentically honest and tell you I do want to hang out with you, I do want to see you, I would love to go there, I'm stuck at the steps in between. And that would open up a conversation of, oh, what are you stuck at? And maybe I could move forward with that. But I think I just go into my automatic reaction, which doesn't help. you know.
I think at the base of all of this is just it's important to just be people and to be considerate and to be empathetic and to ask questions. And for all of us, as much as I appreciate you saying that it's difficult for you, I think that on our end, our difficulty is that we just like put things into call it something without knowing what it is. I think a lot of the problem is on that we all need to do a little perspective taking and acknowledge that. I just was reading a thing in the New York Times this morning about how important it is to understand that your challenges are not the same as mine, but that we all have things going on. And that
Yeah.
if we're empathetic about that and open to understanding that because something was easy for me doesn't mean that it was easy for you.
Yeah.
And so that's a place to come around. We're out of time already, which is crazy because I could talk to you for another 7 hours. Last thought, Jennifer, if there was one thing that you could say to the world out there, and put the book back up, Traven, because it's such an amazing title of this book, Sincerely Your Autistic Child, What People on the Autism Spectrum Wish Their Parents Knew About Growing Up Acceptance and Identity. It's available now, I assume, you can get it on Amazon and every major bookseller. But if there was one thing that you could say to people in parting, Jennifer, for us to be more aware, whether it's for our children or for our friends, about women and on the spectrum and how we can be supportive, what's the one? And I know it's crazy hard question to answer, but can you think of one thing that would be helpful today?
For the people, on the spectrum and off, I guess the one thing would be that women manifest differently. We already come hardwired for more socialization and more communication. So when we get hit in that area, which are the two big areas of autism, we don't look like we are as affected, but we are just as affected in our own way, and struggle. I think women do a better job at masking. So I would say women on the spectrum, trust yourself and embrace whatever it is you need to do and don't give up. And people that love a woman on the spectrum or a girl on the spectrum, believe them. Believe them when they tell you what they feel on the inside. That women often present okay, but believe them when they tell you is on the inside, and don't discount that. I think that would be the most beneficial and the most helpful. So
Powerful message. I want to thank you for coming today. I want to
thank
thank you for being here and for being so open and sharing with us. I've certainly learned a lot, and I think maybe other people have. And when things get a little bit better, pandemic wise, I'm going to be calling you to get together to do something. But I want to do it in a way that works for you.
Well, I would
So
love that. I would love that. And now I have SDP and a great IF to help me get there. So I'm already ahead of
wonderful,
the game. So thank you.
wonderful. All right. So thank you so much for being with us, Jennifer. And I want to say to everybody, tomorrow we're back. The research, once a month we do research on Fridays with Nancy Alspaugh Jackson. And tomorrow we're talking about research having to do with listening therapies, because you guys had asked for that. So that will be tomorrow. Don't forget that Temple Grandin is live with us next Tuesday, and I still need questions from you guys. So if you have questions, you can send them to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye, Jennifer.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everybody. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.